There are many stages of creations. The first is the original or primary creation, primaris, from primus, first. Before the lightest atom, hydrogen, energies existed, as a form of energy existing in the form of gases. 9 levels of them from quarks to biaps to z's/zells, referred to as subatomic energy, before weight or the sum of any weight, registering as nothingness. Yet existing, being lighter than the first form of existence, hydrogen. The first set, before light, before energy, and before matter. The second or secondary stage is the evolutionary creation, the evolving of existence from density to matter, to atoms, to cells, to organisms, to bodies. The second set, before time, before space and before place. The third or tertiary stage, which comes from tertiarius, from Urtius third, are the ghostational creations. The breath of life, the living soul, the existing conscious being. The third set, before body, before soul, and before spirit. There are also different interpretations of the beginning or creation according to the 3 monotheistic religions. The Christian interpretation. Before the creative acts, all was eternity. Time signifies duration measured by the revolutions of the heavenly bodies. There could be no measurement of duration, and consequently no time, therefore in the beginning must necessarily mean the commencement of time which followed. Or rather was produced by God's creative acts, as an effect follows or is produced by a cause. The Jewish interpretation. God created the world for the sake of the Torah, since it is called, Proverbs 8:22, the beginning of his way. But if you should come to interpret it in its plain sense, thus explain it, at the beginning of the creation of heaven and earth, when the earth was unformed and void, and darkness was upon the face of the earth, etc. God said, "Let there be light." For the passage does not come to teach us the order of the acts of creation, to say that these, heaven and earth, came first. For if it came to teach us that, it would have been necessary to write, at first he created the heavens, etc. The Muslim interpretation. God's creation is not a simple act, once done and finished with. It is continuous, and there are many stages, not the least important of which is the hereafter, when the fruits of our life will be achieved. According to different religions, the creation of the planet Earth, the first man, or in other words, the very beginning, dates back at different times. According to Christianity, the Christians claim the concept of the very beginning or creation dates back 4,004 years ago, New Testament. According to Islam, the Muslims claim that the concept of the beginning was 6,000 to 10,000 years ago, Quran, and according to the Hebrews or Jews, they claim that the beginning was 7,000 years ago, Torah. But, it has been proven through scientific facts that the sun is billions of years older than the planet Earth. In Genesis 1:14, it says in part, and I quote, "Let there be lights." Also, in Genesis 1:10 it says in part, "And God called the dry land earth." According to Bible scholars, the events of the Bible occurred in the order they are recorded, Quran 21:33 as well as Quran 6:1. The beginning, according to the biblical and Quranic concept, is widely accepted as the beginning of all the creation and all that exists in the heavens and the earth according to Genesis 1:1. Both religions will openly admit a birth date record for their scripture and its recordings, which clearly states that it was not written at the very beginning nor in the beginning, but thousands of years after, out of memory, or recorded in the very beginning. Yet, when you go past the English translations and research these texts according to the original languages of which none of them claim to be in, concerning the very usage of the names for deity, there is deception. Arabic is not an original language, nor is Hebrew or Greek. For instance, throughout the Quran and Bible, the word God is used oftentimes referring to idols, demons and even mortals. So, they had to have concocted a system of deterrence where they claim big G and small g makes the difference. Meanwhile, in the Quran, Muslims are confronted with the pluralization of the word Allah, Al-Haadi, and even a female idol by the name of Allat, whereas the Greeks alternate theos, kurios, or despots. Never anticipating thousands of years ago when scribes ruled by the pen, that the computer would come into existence and give one the ability to scrutinize and analyze these biblical texts, and reveal the startling facts about their God's creation in the beginning. Let's begin by looking at the word God. Stop and think one moment. The name God is not really in the Bible. If this is not an English book written by Englishmen, it's not there, it was added. You will also find that God, whether you have a big G, or little g, is not being used in the singular tense, as Elo or Allah. The beings spoken of in the Bible and the Quran are the Elohim, the plural of Elo not God, God or Lord, and the Malaikat, Quran 21:16, 51:47, who was sent down to earth from heaven to do the works of El. The New Testament in Greek, which it was not originally, has angelos meaning messenger. However, that was not in the original text. And just why are the plural forms being used in these texts, the Bible and Quran, when making reference to the actual beginning. Isn't the beginning supposedly when it all began? The Hebrew uses the word SABAT meaning army, host of angels for host in Genesis 2:1. These host, or what they now call angelic beings, originally called Elohim in Genesis 1:1, and cherubims in Genesis 3:24, were included in the creation of the heaven and the earth, which was witnessed by one God, the Bible says, who is an Egyptian god, supreme being, called by name in Revelation 3:14 Ho-Amane, or simply the Amen Amun-Re, Amun-Ra, Amen, the faithful and true witness, the beginning of the creation of God. And the Greek word used for God is theos, which would be Elohim in Hebrew. So shouldn't God in the singular tense be speaking and not gods in the plural tense? The question comes up now, just who is or are these gods spoken of in the beginning? And if Genesis 1:1 is not making reference to the beginning, then just when was the beginning of the creation of heaven and earth? Where did the biblical and Quranic concept of the beginning come from, which is still being taught to every child throughout the three monotheistic religions, Judaism, Christianity and Islam, and their many sects and denominations, despite the scientific evidence proving the creation and evolution of the planet Earth dated back further than the origin of the Bible? These holy texts, be it the Tanakh, Torah, the Evangel, New Testament, or the Quran, each have their version of the beginning, all extracted and changed to suit their likings from the creation stories found in the ancient Sumerian tablets in cuneiform, such as the Enuma Elish, the Atrahasis, the Gilgamesh epics, the Etana, and Ishtar descent to the underworld, just to name a few. It is my duty to inform you of the true story of the beginning and where it was copied from. What is the Sumerian creation story? When the Anunnaki descended on Chi, the planet Earth, in search of gold and other minerals to take back to their original planet Rizq, because it was dying, they had to work the gold mines. The work was too hard and back-breaking, and the Anunnaki were complaining. So, they all gathered an assembly to solve the problem. And one Anunnaki by the name of Enki, son of Anu and Id, stood up and said, "Let a primitive worker be created." The idea appealed to the Anunnaki. The more they discussed it, the more clearly their clamor grew for such a primitive worker to take over the workload. But they wondered, how can you create a being intelligent enough to use tools and to follow orders? And Enki answered, "The creature whose name you uttered, it exists. All you have to do is bind upon it the image of the Anunnaki." The Anunnaki decided and resolved to proceed with the task, and on Enki's suggestion, assigned the task to 90, their chief medical officer, refer to the Holy Tablets chapter 2, El-Abd, the slave. All the Anunnaki agreed to create a being that would do the job for them. And this being they called Lulu Amilu, meaning primitive worker. The creation of the first human was done by genetic manipulation. It was not done in an instant. It took 600 years in the grafting and the making of this being called the human. The Anunnaki went through a lot of trial and error to get the perfect being, which accounts for all of your defects in your body. Nekeba, Hawa, Eve, daughter of Ptah and Anath, their prime concern was what genes would produce what type of being. Thus began the process of genetic breeding. In order for the first Adam and Eve to breed, they were transformed from non-gender beings, without separate sex, to male and female. This was done by genetic engineering. Now, what are other interpretations of the beginning or creation through the eyes of different religions and peoples? In 1654 AD, an Irish scholar of Trinity College in Dublin and Anglican archbishop named James Ussher, who was born January 4, 1581 AD, and died March 21, 1656 AD, published the results of his scientific investigation into the creation of the world. He claimed he had pinpointed the precise moment of creation, which was 9 a.m. on October 26, 4004 BC. October 25th was also the traditional first day of the new year for Trinity College. He was ordained in 1601 AD, and was Professor of Divinity at Trinity College in Dublin, before becoming Bishop of Math, 1621 AD, and Archbishop of Armagh, 1625 AD, in England. During the Irish Revolt of 1641 AD, he never returned to Ireland. He leaned toward Calvinism in theology, but he was royalist in politics, and very wrong I might add. The Hopi's interpretation. The Hopi, authored by Nancy Bonvillian, defines the beginning as, the earth was covered with water. There was no dry ground. No animals roamed the mountains and plains, no birds flew in the air, and no people lived. But inside the darkened earth dwelled deities and spirits with great knowledge and power. The Sumerians' interpretation. The Sumerian Inventors and Builders, authored by Elizabeth Lansing, defines the beginning as, according to Sumerian belief there were four all-powerful creating gods in the universe, Enlil, Enki, and Ninkursag. The exalted lady, who nourished the Sumerian rules, was Ninkursag, the mother of all living things. She occupied herself in the creation of man and in bringing green things to earth. The Sumerians believed that this garden of the gods existed somewhere to the east. Enki carried out Enlil's commands and did the actual work of creating, after Enlil had formed the master plan. The Hindus' interpretation. According to the book Great Religions of the World, beginning is defined as, in the beginning there was neither naught nor aught, then there was neither sky nor atmosphere above, then was there neither day, nor night, nor light, nor darkness. Only the existence one breathed calmly, self-contained. The act of creation is past. The creative power of the deity has no immediate interference in the preservation or destruction of the universe. Brahma is called first of the gods, framer of the universe, guardian of the world. He is the personification of matter generally, from him all things proceeded, and in him pre-existed the universe, comprehending all material forms, which he at once called into creation or arranged existence. The Hindus acknowledge only one supreme being, whom they call Brahma, or the Great One. They believe his essence to be infinitely removed from the comprehension of any mind but his own, and they supposed him to manifest his power by the operation of his divine spirit, Vishnu, the pervader, both masculine gender, whence he is often denominated, the first male. And by this power it is believed, that the whole order of the universe is preserved and supported. When they consider the divine power exerted in creating, they call the deity Brahma. The Chinese interpretation. According to World Religions book, authored by John Bowker, the Chinese interpretation of beginning is defined as, Tao means the way by the source and guarantee of Au there is in this or any other universe. This means that the Tao is the unproduced producer of all that is, the source of all things. Taoism is so called, because it shows to live according to the Tao, by going with the flow and not struggling against the tide. Tao is related to Te, the power to bring the Tao into realization in all things. As the Taoist Lin Ling said, I take the whole universe as my house and my own room as my clothing. The great virtue is active non-acting, or Wu well, Tao invariably does nothing, and yet there is nothing that is net done. The Japanese interpretation. According to World Religions book authored by John Bowker, the Japanese interpretation of beginning is defined as, Kami. In its most general sense, it refers to all divine beings on earth or in heaven that appear in the classic texts. More specifically, Hikami are the spirits abiding in and worshipped at shrines. In principle, humans, birds, animals, trees, plants, mountains, oceans, can all be Kami. In ancient usage, anything that was out of the ordinary, or that was called Kami, evil and mysterious things, if they are extraordinary, are called Kami. There are innumerable Kami, in Japanese Yairo ao no Kami, vast myriads of Kami, divided into those that are earthly. The most important are the creators Izanami and Izanagi, and the sun Kami, Amaterasu. The Shoshone's interpretation. According to a book entitled Northern Shoshone, authored by Brigham D. Madsen, the Shoshone's interpretation of beginning is defined as, Shoshone culture was enriched with a tradition of legends to explain the distant past. A variety of complex mythological tales of creation make up an important part of the Shoshone heritage. Ordinarily these portray two participants, Wolf and Coyote. Wolf usually starts as creator while his younger brother, Coyote, enters as a trickster responsible for death, disease, and pain. Coyote brings ill to the world, normally through carelessness, laziness, or error. His mistakes confused and disrupted the original perfection of Wolf's creation and resulted in a world less good, which replaced the perfection of the original world. As an example, in one of these creation stories, Wolf, who was wise and knew what was needed for an ideal earth, told Coyote to lay soil on the original water on which their land was formed. Following Wolf's instructions, Coyote ran over the area in all four directions, placing land on the water as required. But Coyote was too lazy to keep running long enough to make territory sufficient for everyone who would need living space. Because of the Coyote's lack of industry, the earth grew overcrowded. The Swahili Genesis. In the beginning there was only Allah. Then he decided to make light, and when he did, that was the first morning. From that light he created the souls of the angels, the prophets, the saints, and all ordinary human beings. Then Allah created seven things: the canopy, the great tent where Allah lives, the throne, upon which Allah sits, the pen which writes the fate of all human beings, day and night, the book where everything that will ever happen is written down, the trumpet, which will sound on the last day of creation, paradise, the garden where all righteous souls will go to live forever after death, hellfire, in which the wicked will be tortured for eternity. Beneath the throne is a giant tree, the cedar of the end. Millions of leaves hang from the tree, and when one withers and falls, a person dies. For on each leaf, a person's name is written. Then Allah created the sun and the earth. He made the suns and painted the skies in brilliant colors. Then he put stars in the sky. He made all the animals, including a giant rooster with a colorful tail. Every morning that rooster crows, and all the roosters on earth echo his call. Then everyone knows it is time to get up and worship the Lord. They believe that the earth is flat like a saucer and it rests on the horns of a bull. And the bull stands on a huge fish. The earth has 7 layers, separated by air just like a building. The first, top floor, is where the children of Adam and Eve live. The second is the home of the winds. On the third lives a race of very good people, who have big ears and dog-like faces. The fourth is where fire lives. The fifth houses scorpions as big as camels with poisonous tails of steel. On the 6th floor are the souls of the damned, who will be beaten with red-hot steel rods until the end of time. The 7th floor is the deepest and darkest part of the underworld. The devil Iblis lives there. He has demons spying on the children of Adam trying to lure them into doing evil deeds. And hell is even deeper. The worst criminals live there. This is the creation story according to the people who speak in Tanzania, Zanzibar, and Swahili. It is Islamic. A Hindu concept of creation. At first there was only Brahma, and he was formless, only an idea. Then he revealed himself as a vowel, a golden embryo of sound. The sound went out into the void and came back on itself. The waves of sound crisscrossed over and over until they became wind and water. And that was the beginning of the world. Babylonia, Enuma Elish. Before the heavens were named, and before there was ground to walk on, there was only Afsu, the salty ocean waters, and Tiamat, the fresh waters. Afsu and Tiamat lay together until they mingled into one single body and soul. They gave birth to 6 children, Lamu, Lahamu, who became earth, Anshar and Kishar, who became the horizons of earth and skies, Anu, who was the authority of heaven, and Ea the earthy water and all wisdom. As these children grew, they rebelled against their parents. Afsu and Tiamat became angry and tried to take control back. Mummu, the mist of the clouds, told them that the only way to succeed was to kill all their rebellious children. But Tiamat, the mother, would not kill her own children. So Ea the earthly waters, killed his father Afsu and captured Mummu. Ea and his wife Damkina produced Marduk, the greatest Anunnaki of all. It was Marduk who brought true order out of chaos, placing the stars in the heavens, separating heaven from earth, and finding the kingdom of Babylon. This is the Enuma Elish story according to the Babylonians. Do not mix it with the true story of the Enuma Elish. Refer to chapter 4 of the Holy Tablets, La Nabu Shanama, the Enuma Elish. Red Earth Man, creation story is recorded in Hawaii. In the beginning there were 4 great gods, Cain, Ku, Lono and Kanaloa. Cain was the god of creation. He picked an enormous calabash, or gourd out of the sea and threw it up into the air. The top came off and became the sky. 2 other pieces flew off, one became the sun, the other the moon. All the seeds became the stars. The rest of the calabash became the earth. Kanaloa, god of the sea, filled the waters with living creatures, coral and starfish, kona and fish, porpoises and sharks. Cain filled the earth with creatures, fast and slow movers. Creepers and flyers, birds and caterpillars, turtles and lizards. Ku, the god of the forest, made trees for the chief to use, the koa tree for paddles, the hau tree for thatch, the wily wheelie for floats, and so on. Lono, god of growing things, made all sorts of food sprout out of the earth. Sugar cane and coconut, sweet potato and yarn, tow and banana. Now said Cain, we have to make a chief. Go find what we need to make a chief. And they went away and brought back red earth. From this, Cain made a man, Red Earth Man. Adam produces all, concept of Egypt. Adam had many names, Ra, Re, Nebuchadnezzar, or sometimes Khepera. Adam rose out of the watery depths of chaos. He decided to create living things, so he masturbated, put his seed in his mouth and then spit it out. He spit out twins, Shu, the god of air and life, and Tefnut, the goddess of moisture and world order. Shu and Tefnut had another set of twins, Nut and Geb. Geb was the earth and he stretched out on his back. Nut was the heavens, and she bent down to earth like a great arched bridge over Geb's body. Geb and Nut loved each other and they gave birth to 2 sets of twins, Osiris, Isis, Set and Nephthys, who provided a balance for human life, both the light and dark side. Osiris and Isis loved humans and watched over them. Set and Nephthys were the opposite. They were destructive and dark, but were it not for them, life would be all gluttony and lust. God of flint, a bowl of light, creation story according to the Aztecs. In the beginning there was only the god Citlaltanacan and the goddess Citlalus. They were lovers. Citlalus gave birth to a flint knife, which she threw away. Sparks exploded when the flint hit the ground and produced 1,600 gods and goddesses who went down into the underworld and stole a home from the chief of that land. They smeared it with their one red blood and blue light. Out of the blood emerged 2 children, a boy and a girl. the parents of all human beings. Then two deities emerged from the bowl, and set fire to themselves. One became the moon. A golden egg, a Hindu concept of creation. In the beginning darkness cloaked the universe and only the Lord existed. He wanted to create living creatures from his own body. So he created water and placed a seed in it. The seed grew into a golden egg, and then he himself was born in it. Swollen from a year inside the egg. The Lord split in two. The top half of the shell became the spiritual world, the heavens. The bottom half became the physical world, the earth. Out of the egg came Brahma, a primeval being with 1006 heads, faces, eyes, thighs and feet. Each of his limbs became a different creature in the social order. The Braham caste came from his mouths. Demons came from his belly. Merchants and cattle came from his thighs. His feet produced earth, horses and workers. The sun came from his eye. The moon from his soul, and the seasons came from his armpits. Air was his navel. And the sky came from his head. Indonesia, Yami tribe. The great god looked down on the world, and said, Yami is a good island. So he dropped a big rock on it. When the rock hit the ground, it split open and out popped a man. He was hungry, so he ate some paptok, a bean plant. Then he went for a walk to the sea. There he saw a bamboo plant growing and growing right before his eyes. Soon it split open. And out popped another man. Who are we, said Bamboo Man. We are man, said Rock Man. Rock Man went one way, Bamboo Man the other. Rock Man found iron. Bamboo Man groaned. His knees itched and swelled up. From his left knee, out popped a girl, and from his right knee, a boy. Then this same thing happened to Rock Man. When the son of Bamboo Man grew up, he then married the daughter of Rock Man, and they had children, and there were many generations of happy families. They learned to use the iron for tools and the silver for ornaments. They learned to fish and build canoes and sing songs to ensure success on voyages. And so they lived wonderful lives. Purusha, Hindu. Purusha is a deity who is both female and male. Purusha split in half and mated with himself and then gave birth to human beings. But the female half of Purusha was ashamed and in pain. She tried to disappear, but was instead turned into a cow. The male Purusha turned into a bull and mated with the cow, thus creating cattle. Every living creature was made in this way. The female Purusha would turn into a kind of animal. The male Purusha would turn into its male counterpart. They would mate and so on. Rangi and Papa, Polynesia and Maori. For more than 1,000,000 years, Father Sky, whose name was Rangi, and Mother Earth, whose name was Papa, made love. Everything in the world was created in the darkness and movement between their two bodies. Rangi and Papa's children were gods, and they were tired of living in such a cramped space, in the dark, with constant motion. They held a meeting to decide what to do. The father of human beings, whose name was Tumatauenga, said, we should kill our parents. The father of forest, whose name was Tain Mahuta, said no. Let's just push them apart. Then our mother can still support us, and our father can watch over us from above. Many gods tried. He pressed his head into his mother's navel, and pushed his feet up against his father. He pushed and pushed and pushed. What's going on? What are you doing? Cried Rangi and Papa. How dare you be so disrespectful? But the father of forests kept pushing, and finally the two separated. And at last there was light. But there was also anger and sorrow, for Father Sky missed Mother Earth desperately. One of the god children, father of winds and storms, whose name was Tahiri Mata, sided with his father and took revenge upon his brothers. And ever since then, from time to time, the wind will blow and the storm will come, and they will cause pain and destruction for all those creatures who live in the light of the earth. Ymir, Norse. Once there was a land of ice and a land of fire, which met in a great abyss called Ginnungagap. Mists rose up from this chasm, and out of it came Adamla. The cow Adhumla licked the ice and released 3 gods. One of them was Odin. Then out of the mist came a giant Ymir. He drank the cow's milk, and giant children sprang into life from between his toes. Odin and the other gods decided to kill Ymir. So Odin thrust a spear into his heart. The blood that gushed forth drowned all the giants. Ymir's skull became the dome of the sky. His bones, the continents, his brain the clouds, his hair the plants, and blood the rivers and seas. Ymir's eyebrow became Midgard, the home of the gods. Humans were first little toys made by elves from the joints of Ymir's bones. Uranus, Greek. First there was chaos, and then came Gaia, Mother Earth. She gave birth to the sky, Uranus, and they lay together and made many children. Among them were Titan and Cyclops. Uranus hated these 2 children and sent them away. This made Gaia angry and resentful. She asked the 7 sons who had not been banished to push Uranus off of her. The youngest, Cronus, led the attack. He castrated his father with a sickle. The blood that spilled became the Furies. Uranus left Gaia, his goddess of love, and his eyes became the stars, which looked down coolly on the violent happenings of Earth. Tlaltecutli, Aztec. Before this world we live in existed, there were 4 other worlds. Each had sun and each were destroyed. The Aztec, 5th sun, world was created when Quetzalcoatl, feathered serpent, and Tezcatlipoca, smoking mirror, came down from the heavens with the earth goddess, Tlaltecutli. Tlaltecutli had the form of a monster. There were snapping mouths on her limbs, and she had the body of a giant toad and the teeth and claws of a jaguar. Quetzalcoatl and Tezcatlipoca watched her floating on unformed waters. They turned themselves into serpents coiled around the goddess, and tore her in two. One half they took back to heaven, and from it made many gods. Those gods saw the other half of her mutilated body and heard her cries, and they felt sorry for her. They turned her body into the earth, and ordered that living things would grow from it, fruit and plants and trees. Tlaltecutli's eyes became ponds and springs. Her mouth made the rivers, and her nose made both valleys and mountains. Nukua's rope, Chinese. Nukua, the wife of Ruhiz, thought there should be people on earth. So she took some yellow earth and carefully shaped human figures out of mud. Then she breathed life into these forms. Oh, thought Nukua, this is a long and boring task I have set out for myself. I have to find a way to speed it up. So she found a rope, dipped it into the mud, then shook the rope and tailed it behind her. Mud dripped off onto the ground in lumps. Nukua breathed life into all of them. The people whom she molded so carefully became the masses of the poor. As you read all of these stories, you can see for yourself that these stories, or myths, or concepts of creation all come down to the same thing, which is that one supreme being called Allah, or God, or Jehovah, or Brahma, or Yahweh, or whatever name you call him, decided to create the earth and all the living beings within it.